From Tally to Cali,
It's time
to wake up.
Wake up! Wake up!
Warchant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source.
And this is Wake Up Warchant, presented by Corner Pocket Bar and Grill.
One more corner pocket.
Now here's Warchant.com's Aslan Hajavandi.
And Corey Clark.
Wake up! What is up, everybody? It's Wake Up Warchant, presented by Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. Coming up on today's show, a piece of paper in my hand with practice observations. I relay them to you all. We speak to Mark Ennis of ESPN Louisville to get the latest on the cards, and we speak about some college football playoff potential matchups. Wake Up Warchant, presented by Corner Pocket Bar and Grill, Tallahassee, Florida. CPTallybar.com on the virtual world, 2475 Appalachia Parkway. In the flesh. Check them out. Daily lunch specials from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Monday through Friday. Can't go wrong with your lunch at the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. On Thursdays, you know what they feed you. They feed that cheesesteak sandwich, chicken or steak. Comes with a side dish of your choice, straight fries, curly fries, onion rings, potato salad, coleslaw, broccoli, side salad, tater tots, or freshly cooked potato chips. Your options. Only $8.99. At the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. And bingo going down 7 o'clock later tonight. Test your bingo skills to win drinks, prizes, cash. And go check the game out Saturday. If you're not going to be in Charlotte hanging out with Corey, Ira, Matt Lasser, Jeff Cameron, and myself, we'll be at Resident Culture. That's the name of it. Not a lot of confidence in my voice there. I apologize, everybody. Excited to be there. Excited to see everybody. It is in Charlotte, North Carolina, 332 West Bland Street, 6 p.m. This is really a Charlotte Seminole Club production. We're just kind of tagging along. So it's going to be awesome because they're great. They know how to throw a party. So there'll be a DJ, live music. Won't be any kind of live broadcast component, but we'll be there live in the flesh. So come shake our hands. Tell us how much you love the podcast.
Right, please.
Say it really loud in front of Ira, too.
If you say anything else to us, don't. If you feel like saying you don't love the podcast or don't listen to it, just save it, gang. But also, Aslan, are you going to get on the ones and twos? You going to do a little DJing while you're there?
It's been a while since I've done a set, man. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That'd be pretty awesome.
Kind of out of touch with today's music, too, so who knows about that. Also going down over at warchant.com, the Ultimate Seminole Sports Source, the Silly Season promotion. I think it's $1 for a month or 50% off for an annual membership for first-time subscribers. So silly season, not really as much of an effect on Florida State because your coach is not going anywhere. Maybe one of your assistants does, though. Apparently, I think some report out there put that maybe Atkins is on the Duke hot board. But obviously, transfer portal opens up officially December 4th. Early signing day. All this stuff going on. So that is silly season. We've got you covered like nobody else. Come home. 50% off an annual membership for first-time subscribers or $1 for a month if you just want to give us a test run like that. But shoot, I mean, come on, 50% off for the whole year. Can't go wrong with that either. So, Corey, trust you're doing well. Yes?
I am. Thank you, as always, for asking. But, yeah, I'm doing good.
Okay. All right, here we go. You know what that sound is, Corey?
I don't know. Are you about to do a read for Vitamin Energy?
Not yet. That's later on the show, probably the 19-minute mark. But this is what we call observations. So I like to handwrite them down, but then I type them out because I can't read my handwriting.
Do you type them out on a real typewriter?
I wish.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Put that on my Christmas wish list. Shout out to our guy Seth, who I guess gave Ira awesome binoculars. Ira's very appreciative of those, by the way, Seth.
He is. We gave him. Stephanie had him, and then Stephanie dropped him off because Stephanie lives very close to Ira in Killearn, where most of Tallahassee lives, and dropped him off. I think on Thanksgiving, and so Ira had him in Gainesville, and yeah, he could see. He said he could see like Norvell, what Norvell was saying. They're incredible binoculars. I'm not quite sure why he gave them to Ira and not me.
Right.
Because I was there, Seth. I was at CP hanging out with you, and I could always use some more binoculars. But we gave them to Ira, who actually did his had almost essentially broken.
Are they?
Yeah, the ones he stole from me about 10 years ago have finally seen their last days. So it was perfect timing, Seth.
All right, shout out. Also known as Don Rugans on the internet message board. That is the Tribal Council. So, all right. There has been no correlation between what happens in period 3 and what this football team does because they win every week. So, that said, probably the grossest period 3 we've seen. It is 11 on 11. It's the first one of the day they do. The situation, Corey, was down by 2, 1 timeout, ball on your own 20-yard line, 52 seconds left.
Right.
First, quote, play, unquote, delay of game. Coming out of the delay of game, false start.
Wait, but Brock Glenn was the quarterback, right?
I wasn't going to say that out loud, but you just did. So
Well, I don't know why you wouldn't, because Ira wrote it.
Okay.
It's on his observations, so it's out there. So, I mean, yes, Brock Glenn was the quarterback. Tate Rodemaker did practice, everyone.
Correct.
But Brock Glenn was the quarterback in this scenario, and I think that's the context that might be needed here. If you're gonna observe practice, Aslan, let's hear it. Let's hear some observations.
Well, I thought we don't want to give away competitive advantages.
But we're not. It's just the backup quarterback took those reps.
It was Wednesday, everybody. I think everything will be all right by Saturday, but maybe that should give you a glimpse into tempering your expectations for how much growth could have been accomplished this week. That's all I'm going to say. After the delay of game and false start, a gain to Lawrence Toafili. The ball was spotted about 15 yards downfield. I don't know if he actually got 15 yards, but they spotted 15 yards downfield. Then a nice deep shot down the field to Johnny Wilson, but it was incomplete. He didn't drop it. It was just it was nice moxie. It was nice ambition, but it was off target. And then after that, pass intercepted by Greedy Vance.
Greedy.
That was it for period 3. That was a wrap. More 11 on 11, period 9, a.k.a. cash period, own 25-yard line. Brock Glenn throws a strike to Johnny Wilson, first down. Next play, he kind of gets bailed out. Pocket was collapsing in on him. He wasn't seeing it, but he got a hand to the face, illegal hand to the face, so flag on that. Would have given them a first down in the cash situation, which is your 3rd down, 4th down. His next rep went incomplete. A.J. Duffy had a completion to Keziah that was short of the sticks, but he bounced back, had a nice strike downfield to Destin Hill for a first down and was incomplete on the 3rd and final rep of the cash period. Can't really illustrate the play, the final 11 on 11 core that they do before their snack break outside, but it wasn't successful. So,
okay.
But I liked what they were trying to do. It just didn't work.
That's good. That's good.
There's that. We'll go to one-on-ones, Corey's favorite part of the day. Completion from Tate Rodemaker to Marqueson Douglas, completion to Ja'Kai Douglas, and then an incompletion. So 2 for 3. Not too shabby. Brock Glenn hooks up with Kentron Portier, then he goes incomplete. Then nice, really sticky coverage by Kevin Noles. I forgot whose hip pocket he was in, but he was, and he just snatched it away for an interception. But shout out to Brock Glenn, bounce back, phenomenal throw downfield, and even better catch, falling backwards onto his back, Darion Williamson.
Okay.
And then A.J. Duffy had a nice deep shot in his set with Josh Burrell. Then they turn around. They were going from their own 5-yard line down the field, into the plus side, I guess you would say, or maybe the minus side of the field. Then they turn around and go red zone from basically the 5-10-yard line. You know how it goes, Corey. Tate goes incomplete. Touchdown to Johnny. Incomplete. Defensive pass interference. Incomplete. Brock Glenn goes incomplete, and he kept it and didn't make it in.
Yeah.
AJ goes incomplete. Tutty, as the kids say. Kyle Morlock incomplete, and then a touchdown to Vandravius Jacobs. We're almost done, everybody, I promise. Last one, 7 on 7s. Incomplete pass from AJ Duffy. PBU by Fentrell Cypress. Hussey picks one off, and then a check down. Brock hooks up downfield 15-ish yards to Destin Hill, checks down, then throws another short completion. Later on, hits Destin Hill. I think at that point, Tate subbed in. Complete to Destin Hill, complete to Jackson West, complete to Marqueson Douglas. A perfect 6 for 6 in 7 on 7s for Brock Glenn. Meanwhile, Tate, really nice throw to Johnny. Johnny betrayed him, dropped it. Check down, drop from Darion Williamson, and then a nothing burger, just kind of kept it and scrambled away. So those are your practice observations. 23 periods on the day again, Corey. They went a little bit short like they did on Tuesday. Yeah. So there you go. You read Ira's observations, probably a little bit more thorough than mine. What do you take away from the written word, spoken word from your co-host?
Yeah. It's a long season. It's a long season. They've got, 2 more practices until they get, I don't know what they get, a week off, 2 weeks off? Like, if they win, In the game, you get 15 bowl practices. Is that right?
You can, yeah. You don't have to use all of them, though.
You
but,
probably don't use them all. So I would think if they would start practicing around, well, no matter what, if they're playing in the playoff game or the Chick-fil-A Bowl, you'd probably start practicing around December 13th or 14th. So look, man, there aren't many teams in the country that could use 12 days off.
Oh, geez.
Like Florida State can. Maybe Jordan Travis gets back. I'm just kidding. That's so. Hey, by the way, good news. Apparently the surgery was successful. He tweeted about it or Instagrammed it. I don't remember on Monday that he did have the surgery, or Tuesday. I'm sorry. So that's cool. He should be at the game. We all hope on Saturday. But yeah, man, they need a break. That's why you would think with a championship game looming and a spot in the playoff looming, you would be going. They just can't. It's been 9 straight weeks, and it is a beat-up football team. They are still practicing hard. Don't get it twisted. But you know that's why they're maybe Aslan 15 minutes shorter than they have been because they're just beat up, man. It's been
maybe closer to
of
30
November,
minutes to be honest with you.
But also think of November, just November. You were at Pittsburgh, which was a weird physical game, more physical than you thought it would be, but your receiving core wasn't with you. Then you play Miami, which was probably the most physical game of the year, I thought. North Alabama is supposed to be the cakewalk, and then you get down by 2 touchdowns and you lose your quarterback for the year. So you're in a dogfight there until the middle of the third quarter, and then you go on the road and play another really physical game against a rival in Florida. Like they need to be right by Saturday at 8:00, and I think that's what all this the saving the body here and there should get them right. You hope physically for Saturday at 8.
Louisville hasn't had a cakewalk, though. They had a Thursday night game against Virginia, then they played Miami, then they had their Bluegrass Commonwealth Cup, whatever they call it, showdown, Governor's Cup, I think they call it out there. So they, too, are battered and bruised. Every team pretty much is. I think even Coach Bowden would, towards the end of his tenure when, people would talk about the BCS going away and there being maybe a playoff at some point, he was like, well, what's the point? He's like, at that point, we're not figuring out who the best team is. We're just figuring out who's the most healthy team.
Right, yeah.
But, there's enough break and cushion in there that there's spacing it out.
But it's also the bye week. I don't know when Louisville's bye week was. But, now we talked about
October 21st.
Yeah, so a month later, right?
Yeah.
Or 3 weeks later.
This will be their 6th game in a row.
Florida State's about to play their 10th. So that's a lot, man. That's a lot. That's a lot of games in a row. It's like an NFL schedule. So again, the whole point of you're wanting to get better. You're putting the game plan in. It's a lot of work against scout team, and you're just trying to be your best, the best you can possibly be on Saturday night at 8.
Bio is actually 9th. This will be their 9th straight game, Corey, not 10th. 9th.
I thought they finished with 9 straight games. Wasn't there? When was their
after the 4th game?
After Clemson.
Yeah. So that's after the 4th game.
It was
the 13th
yeah,
game.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, so 9 weeks in a row.
Speaking of, let's use this moment to correct Corey. I'll let you go on this. Joe the lawyer pointed this out, actually, but nonetheless, our guy NYC Noel, who's always correcting us, we keep talking about all the undefeated regular seasons, and the Gators have never had any.
They did have, you're right, 1995.
And
was there another one?
I think the year they lost to Bama in the SEC championship game. I think 2009 they were, because they were number 1, right? And
that's
Bama
right.
was like 2.
Yeah.
So.
Yep, you're right. Correct. Sorry. So I guess the 95 one, though, wasn't a 12-0. It was an 11-0. But even then, the Alabama game in 2009, they were probably 12-0 going into that one. Yeah. Whatever. Who cares? I don't remember those seasons.
Yeah, they never had an undefeated season in its totality, which is what all matters.
I really didn't think I'd forgotten they even had. I forgot about the 95, the 95 season, and I think most Florida fans would like to forget the way that bad boy ended. That was Tommy Frazier just scored again. Like it was like 62 to. Did they get in the 60s in that game? What, like 62 to 20?
Sounds about right.
I'll look it up. You get to going.
All right, we got a lot of questions. We're going to split it up over the next 2 days. I'll be on the road to Charlotte with Ira, Matt Lasser, Jeff Cameron. So where do we start on this? I guess let's just finish out NYC Noles post right here, which is about Tate and Brock. What's up, gents? Love the win last week and everything about it, but I need to ask you, what was the more impressive moment outside the game itself? The confidence and moxie oozing out of a young Brock Glenn as he warmed up on the sideline that would make Chris Winkie envious, or Was it Tate looking like he was knocked to next Tuesday, only to emerge from the medical tent moments later to be on the field for the final dagger? Both impressive, but I got to go with Tate. Full disclosure, in my mind's eye, I see Rodemaker emerging from the medical tent, both middle fingers raised to the skies to the crowd as he's running onto the field.
It was 62-24. By the way, it was
close.
The final. I was right there. I thought they got in the 60s, Nebraska, when they beat Florida for the '95 championship. Look, I'm mostly really excited about Brock Glenn. Still a tinge of that's a little too much self-belief. But again, like I said, I would much rather him look like that and believe in himself like that than completely melt down and look like a kid that didn't think he belonged. He absolutely thinks he belongs, which is good. But yeah, obviously Tate showed a ton of toughness by, he was on the field for, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, and then, 2 plays later he's back in the game. It did help. There was a penalty, so he got a little extra. So he came in, I guess, on second down after the incompletion, and then the Brock Glenn 7-yard run, but then it was only it actually counted as a penalty. So I guess he was in there for 2 plays later.
All right, the Louisville scouting report part here. By the way, we'll have Mark Ennis on the show today, later on in here, probably on this one, I think, because we'll do over-unders on the Friday program, so that'll give you a little bit of a break from having to listen to Corey and I. So he'll give you some more ideas on this. But Island Chief says, Corey, wake up. Your rendering of Seminole win will never be forgotten. Next undefeated season, a small request, perhaps higher, because the Creed vibe is real. Can you take me higher?
Guys, you got it. You already got it. You don't need me to do that.
Over.
You just nailed it.
All right, so we got 3 people wanting to know things about Louisville. Island Chief says, does Louisville have the offensive line to match our defensive line? What is their weakness? Depth question mark. Winkles says, wake up. How sweet 12-0, man. Wild season. How different is this Louisville team from last year's Louisville team that Tate smacked around? Everybody's spelling it all different kinds of phonetic ways. It's amazing, Corey. And then Noel Boy 02, how much has Louisville's defense changed since Tate last played them? Does that experience help Tate? Now, I'll turn some of this over to Corey as you maybe formulate a response to this. I love Akeem Dent. And I know, listen, I get it. Like, Adam Fuller's job is to figure everything out and give them the keys and focus on stuff. And I don't know how much of post-practice interviews are just saying words just to get this thing done with and get out of your pads and into a nice warm locker room and take a shower. But Akeem did say, they're the same team that we saw last year. Kind of not dismissively. He's not being disrespectful of his opponent, but he did say, we know who they are. We played them last year. And I'm like, I don't know, man. I think, Mark Ennis goes to talk about the fact that they were kind of like an inside zone run team, and that's really not Brahms' makeup. He wants to be a downfield passing offense, but he hasn't had the tools to do that. But he's tried to integrate a little bit more of that. I just think Plummer, for all of his flaws, might be a little bit more of a polished passer than Malik Cunningham, but not nearly as effective as running that RPO read option stuff. But they're not nearly as dependent on it, I feel like.
Yeah, so offensively, though, yes, it's not close to what they were last year because last year you had to deal with Cunningham. I mean, that guy was their running threat. I mean, they had good running backs. It's Louisville, but Cunningham was the difference maker. He was the wild card. And, Verse got injured in the first half. Fabian Lovett didn't play. Cooper was hurt. Josh Farmer had to play a ton. Patrick Payton had to play a ton. And they were redshirt freshmen that have never really played before. So Louisville ran all over them in that game last year. I think over 200 yards, had a lot of runs up the gut. This year, yeah, I think they're better. I think they're better on the offensive line, but obviously the quarterback isn't the same running threat. And your defensive line is worlds better than it was last year. So that helps. That's a good matchup. So on the other side of the ball, they have a very good run defense, and you don't run the ball well. So not a great matchup there.
All right. Well said. Let's go to Turbo Knoll, 75.
Although they have, and I say that because even though they gave up 38 against Kentucky, again, 7 was a kickoff return, and then Leary made 2 incredible touchdown throws where it's tight coverage. Kentucky had less than 90 yards rushing, and Kentucky loves to run the ball. Louisville's strong up front against the run. They're also top 20 in the country overall in total defense. They're one spot behind Florida State, actually. So very similar type defense. I think Florida State is better defensively than Louisville, but you're starting a kid making his second career start against a competent, pretty talented defense that is going to bring a lot of pressure. You're going to have to throw to win, in my opinion. You have to throw to win. You can't run against this team. You're not going to be able to run traditionally against this team, probably. So can Tate make the plays downfield in the passing game to beat a competent defense? That's the question.
Oh, the question around the office might be like, I'm not feeling good. What can I do to get better focus, get better mood? Vitamin Energy, everybody. VitaminEnergy.com. Promo code WarChant BOGO, WarChant BOGO. Also, the title sponsor of the wildly popular War Chant rap with Irish O'Fell and Corey Clark after every postgame. And there's been a lot of victories lately. Victories ever since Vitamin Energy got on board. So maybe keep them in business so Florida State can keep winning football games. Maybe there's correlation, causation. Who knows? What I do know is that it has 260 milligrams of all natural caffeine. And when I take just a half a shot of it, I feel significantly better in the gym. Get probably about 5-10 pounds more on the barbell when I'm doing my bench press. Maybe 1 or 2 more reps. Pretty cool. Not bad for something that's not even 2 full ounces and I think works out to less than $2.50 a shot when you use the promo code WarChantBOGO, WarChant BOGO. Buy one, get one free. It's cool how that works, right? Only can use it once, though, so use it judiciously. Get 2 of these things, give one out stocking stuffers. It's that time of year. Are there stockings up at the Atlanta house yet, Corey, or no? Just Steph not been up there yet to get you in the Christmas spirit?
No, there's nothing up here. My neighbors have already decorated their houses, even though we're still in November.
So did
technically.
I.
But no, I there's nothing up, and there won't be anything up. I get a small Christmas tree, like a fake one, that I'll put up, and that's about it.
All right. Don't be Corey Clark. Embrace the holiday spirit. Embrace all that energy inside of you. Unlock it with Vitamin Energy. VitaminEnergy.com. Promo code WarChantBOGO, B-O-G-O. Mark Ennis from ESPN Louisville talking cards right after this. Welcome back in. Wake Up Warchant, presented by the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. We got Mark Ennis here, drive time host of The Drive. Good name. I like that. Over on 93.9 The Ville in Louisville. Mark, how are you, man?
I've been better coming off of last weekend, but overall, doing great.
All right, let's talk about that real quick, I guess. Anything from the loss against Kentucky for Louisville that seemed endemic of any problems maybe that were kind of bubbling to the surface this late in the season, or was it just kind of a one-off and things got away from them late?
I think it's more of that. I mean, I do think there's reason for concern. Defensively, they haven't played great the last 3 weeks. I think Jeff Brom himself said after the Kentucky game, felt like over the past 3 weeks, at least long stretches of the defense have been, his words, were subpar. But overall, the loss to Kentucky, I think that's sort of what is so jarring about all of it is it really wasn't like when Scott Satterfield was here, that they were just getting manhandled or just like he just sort of seemed overwhelmed by the moment. It wasn't any of that. It was Louisville can't give up a 100-yard kickoff return and fumble the ball twice in their own territory. That sort of thing. Louisville helped Kentucky, and Kentucky helped itself with the help that Louisville gave them and beat them in a game that I think if they played 10 times, Louisville probably win 7 times. But this was one of the 3, and Louisville's, I think, as much to blame for it as what Kentucky did.
Have they played mostly clean this year, Louisville?
They've played some tight games, but I think efficiency has been a big part of what they've been able to do. I think this is close to the maxed out version of them that almost any coach in the country could have gotten out of them. And they've been fortunate that the schedule has not had them play a bunch of teams that could punish them. And 10 out of 12 times, they've been able to escape with a win. They've had a 5-1, I think, in 1-score games now at this point this year, with Kentucky being the loss. They've been calm. They've been, I think, collected in tight games. They've made some really crucial stops multiple times throughout the year. And in those games where they don't do that, they've lost.
Let's, I guess, start defensively then. I think a lot of Florida State fans are well aware of Jarvis Brownlee, also Quincy Riley back there at cornerback, 2 safeties that have played a lot of football, in Ben Perry and Cameron Kelly. is the back end been the problem, or is nobody really helping out Austin Gelati and the amount of sort of disruption he's done, and no one's kind of maybe been a nice second fiddle defensively? What's kind of holding them back, you think, at this point in the late season?
Yeah, I definitely think the secondary is the strength of the defense, and I think it's what they've relied on in crucial moments. So I think they've covered well. I think it's allowed them a lot of freedom to be as pressure filled as they'd like to be. They can bring 5, 6, 7. Like I think they trust the corners and safeties. Devin Neal would add in there as another safety that's played a lot this year. Defensive line, Ashton Galati has been fantastic this year. And I think there were some real questions coming into this year as how much of what he did last year was at least due in part to the fact that everyone had to focus on other people. Well, this year he was clearly the focus, and I thought he still played extremely well. Just clearly, I think all ACC caliber, a very disruptive guy. I think the big questions have been other people as pass rushers. And I think in some of the bigger games this year, guys like Mason Reiger had a huge game against Notre Dame and Joe Alt. I mean, he played great in that game. But then against Kentucky last weekend, those guys were kind of nowhere to be found. So I definitely agree. I think the secondary is the strength of the defense. I think that they trust them, and it allows them to be super flexible up front and be as aggressive as they want to be. And that the question for Louisville in this game and against anybody really good is, can they get disruptive defensive line play from anybody else but Galati? When they do, they play well. And when they don't, they don't.
Do you think that's the key? I mean, to rattle a guy like Tate Rodemaker, and do you like the way that Louisville's front can kind of match up and maybe create those problems for I don't want to call him a younger guy. I mean, he's been here for a long time, but obviously hasn't played as much football as Jordan Travis had.
Well, of all the fan bases that might feel encouraged by Jordan Travis being out and Tate Rodemaker playing, Louisville's not the one. After last year, I can vividly remember thinking like, boy, they're really in trouble if Jordan Travis is out. And then, of course, Rodemaker, I will give Mike Norvell a ton of credit. They basically went into the locker room at halftime a year ago and figured out, here's what Tate's really comfortable with. And then they just killed Louisville with it in the second half. Johnny Wilson, I think he had 100 catches, it felt like, in that game last year. But I mean, obviously, you would still rather have to face him than Jordan, because he's such a dynamic runner. And the running quarterbacks that Louisville's faced this year really gave them a lot harder time, even as recently as Calandria a couple of weeks ago for Virginia, who's a really, I think, pretty feisty player. I like him a lot.
I like that kid. If he enters in the portal, I'd kick the tires on the kid.
100% agree with you on that. So I do think coming after Rodemaker and him being at least less mobile than Jordan Travis helps Louisville, and I think that it will make them, I think, feel free to maybe play a little more man coverage, be able to sort of turn the back on the offense a little bit. You can't do that with Jordan Travis at all, that sort of thing. But I really think this is so much more about if Louisville can score and how they'll score to keep up. But I do think that they'd much rather face Tate than Jordan Travis. Anybody would.
Is there a number? Is it a race to 28, 31?
Yeah. That's I think even Vegas's number as well, like 50 and a half right now, something like that. In that range. Yeah, I think whoever can get to the high 20s is probably going to win this game. Yes.
I mean, Florida State's defense is like sneaky elite relative to what's going out there in the year 2023. 5 common opponents. Louisville's allowed 100 points. Florida State 93. So they're pretty much on par there, though. So ultimately, the run game is what's been established and a really successful part of this offense that Jeff Brom's brought in year one. Just watching like the first half against Kentucky, which isn't the whole picture of that game, Mark, but I mean, they can just, you feel like a team like Louisville is almost built to win a game in late November, early December now. It's going to be cold, kind of a little bit rainy, drizzly. I mean, Jawar Jordan, Isaac Garendo, that offensive line, they've got the Jacobs blocking trophy winner at the center. So is Jack Plummer holding them back from their full potential, or is this maybe a moment where you guys can really see what he's made of if he can make a couple more throws, or just does he need to make more plays or less, predicament creation for the offense for Louisville?
Yeah, Jack Plummer is like a super game manager. I would not say that they the more he throws past like a tipping point, like if they get north of 30 passing attempts, like it's probably not going great, for Louisville's offense. Jeff, I will give him credit. He inherited a team that was an inside-outside zone running team from Scott, and they were good at that. And he has not fought that being, I think, even with, that's not how he'd like to play at all. He loves to throw it around. But I think he recognized pretty quickly, I've got a veteran offensive line and I've got a couple of really good backs. And that Jack Plummer is not a guy that you would want to throw the ball a million times in a game. He's a game manager. He keeps his wits about him. He does not make a bunch of terrible reads or anything like that. What Jack Plummer does wrong is feels the moment, I think, sometimes, and you can see kind of his mechanics break down under pressure, that sort of thing. And then this might sound ridiculous, but like trying too hard. It's a funny thing to have a quarterback where you're like, will you please just give up on this play and come back for the next one? Yeah. And there have been a number of times where he's drawn some really inopportune intentional grounding calls, or if you would just throw this thing away, instead you get hit, fumble, that sort of thing. They had a really bad fumble last weekend, against Kentucky, right by the sideline, that sort of thing. So for him, I think it's not trying to do too much when it's just not necessary. That's the big issue with Jack Plummer.
Is Jamari Thrash, is he just the best receiver on a team in the ACC, or is he one of the best receivers, you think, in this conference?
I mean, I do think he's one of the better ones in the conference, but there are a lot of good ones. He has been slowed down quite a bit by a hand injury, and I think it has changed his production quite a bit in the second half of this season. He's not been quite the explosive guy that he was, and I think he just can't do the hand fighting and that sort of thing like he could earlier in the year. Had a really bad drop against Miami that was clearly because of the hand being injured. I would say that's the one area of this Louisville team that has regressed from the middle of the year until now. I think early in the year, you really had to worry about guys bombs away. And I really feel like in the last second half of this season that the receivers have become more pedestrian. You did have the one bomb against Virginia where they tied the game to Amari Huggins-Bruce, but there haven't been tons and tons of throws over the top like there were in the first half of the season.
We're not the gambling podcast, but I think it opened at 5.5 Florida State favorite. I think it's shortened up to like 2.5. I mean, what were your initial thoughts, I guess, when you saw that line and where it sits at now? Catch you by surprise or sound about right?
Yeah, I think that number now is reflective of uncertainty, about Florida State with Rodemaker in there. He didn't blow Florida up or anything. I thought he played fine, but he didn't, light them up. And I think people do have respect for Jeff Brom in big games, and he's earned that. I mean, I think he has the reputation. If Louisville had played really well and just beat the hell out of Kentucky last weekend, I'd be super worried about this game, because this is Jeff's MO, is like they play well in these big games and then lose the very next game, and they've done that in his time at Purdue, and they even did it here with the ridiculous Pitt loss, coming right after beating Notre Dame. And so I think it's just reflective of the fact that overall in his career everywhere, including here now, when it comes to these really, really big games, he's had his teams ready to go. And then I think if Jordan Travis was in this game, FSU probably 7.5 point favorites, and I think that'd be about right.
Yeah, I want to ask you about that as we kind of wind things down here. I think the conventional wisdom is you want to win all your games, obviously, but you want to win those rivalry games. But we kind of talked about it in the Florida State sphere about, listen, you do have Tate, and if you happen to lose these next 2 weeks, like, do you want to win the state championship and beat Florida, or would you rather win the ACC championship? And I think all Florida State fans would have been like, state championship. We could probably swallow losing to Louisville, but we don't want to lose that Florida team in that arena. I wonder, are Louisville fans, obviously Kentucky, you want to win the freaking Commonwealth, but is it maybe a little bit of a winning the conference championship might have more juice for year one and for what the fan base wants and craves?
Yeah, I think so. And I've made mention of the fact a couple of times this week so far. I was surprised in the immediate aftermath, like the post-game show that we do right after the game. And then on yesterday's show, very little like rancor, very little anger about losing to your rival, even when you're a favorite, all that sort of thing. And I think I've done post-game shows now for Louisville football for this. I think this is my 12th or 13th year, something like that. And I've never seen it like that after Kentucky. And the only thing I can really attribute it to is the fact that for the first time since this thing moved to the end of the year, there's another game afterwards. It's usually, you go off into December and you've got your bowl prep and recruiting and everything. And that was everyone's last taste. Well, now you've got an enormous important game. So I don't know if it takes a lot of the sting of Kentucky out, but it certainly is nice to have that instead of having to just sit in that loss for a month afterwards.
Yeah, I feel like the conventional wisdom, you want to win your game, you want to have the momentum coming into this one, but you mentioned, Brahms' kind of history. I'm of the belief, I almost feel like if you're a Florida State fan, this is not the ideal sort of situation for you going against, because you've had such an emotional 3 weeks playing Miami, losing Jordan Travis, having a, I don't want to say squeak past Florida, but really earn and fight tooth and nail. I know, not that Louisville needed to be refocused, but it really does feel like, to get that taste out of your mouth, like you can make everything up by winning a game like this. I mean, how do you think, it sets up emotionally for Louisville going into this weekend?
I think you're probably largely correct about this being a refocusing and a remotivating thing, and a way for everyone to sort of just wash out the taste of what happened last weekend and accomplish something big. I do think it would be. I'm not in any way saying this would be a disappointing season or anything. I'm not ridiculous. But it would be a little bit of a thud, at the end of the year to lose to Kentucky and then lose to Florida State in the ACC championship game, and then maybe be in the Orange Bowl, lose again. Like, that would be awful, just for how good everything had been really up until week 11 or so. So I do, but I think the motivation level in this game is fascinating, and the interest that others have in how this goes, because it's the night game. Florida State's going to know what situation it's in when it comes to the college football playoff. When this game kicks off, like, they're going to know if they need to win and win impressively. They're going to know, and I would imagine that the ACC might be torn, right, in terms of who they're rooting for, because you'd love to get FSU in the playoff and Louisville in the Orange Bowl financially, but FSU and the ACC, right. I would imagine everyone in the country outside of Tallahassee would be rooting for Louisville, though, because it would clearly open up something for Texas or for Washington or Oregon or somebody else battling for that fourth spot. So I think it's to be amazing to watch sort of who's interested in what, but by the time this thing kicks off.
And I feel like if you're a Florida State fan, you're hoping, like, Oregon wins Friday night, Oklahoma State wins on Saturday, just because, like, if nobody else gets got, it's like, man, we're the last game of the night.
Just win.
Someone's gonna, there's always chaos that happens in these situations. So,
well, I never think it's good to be in a place where you've got to win a certain way.
Do you think they have to? I've been on the fence. Like, if Alabama beats Georgia, I think maybe the door opens for both those teams to get in, and then Florida State gets under scrutiny. But man, if they go 13-0, it's really hard to imagine them being left out. But I guess you maybe need to prove that with this quarterback, because this is a different team without that quarterback, Jordan Travis, that maybe you do have to prove to the committee that you're capable, deserving, the best, whatever they want to use.
Yeah, I have a hard time believing they would leave Florida State out at 13-0 because this would still be another really good win for them if they win this game. And I feel like that's getting discounted too. But I do think that by the time we get to kickoff, we could be in a situation where they feel pressure to send a certain message. And I don't know about anybody else. I've never liked feeling like not only do I have to win a certain way. I feel like teams try too hard. They try to get all of it right away. And it seems like those kinds of wins happen when you just play the way you know how to play. So I don't know if that would sort of be a distraction or something that was actually turns out to be a negative for Florida State. But it's another one of these, I think, kind of motivational angles that are worth paying attention to.
Yeah. It's going to be a real fun old throwback chess match, I think, with the coaches. I think it really is going to be kind of magnified just how good of a tactician both these guys are, and if they can get their teams in the right mindset, because they're both dealing with some really crazy emotions and having to process things here at this end of the year. So
I think Mike Norvell, just as an aside, I think he's done an incredible job at Florida State. I was
wrong, Mark. I was wrong.
Yeah. It was rocky at first, right? And I think there were a lot of people who were just worried about, like, can you just let him get his feet set? And I think once he did, he's really proven to be just exactly what they needed. And I think Louisville fans are hoping that Jeff Brom is the exact same thing.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes on Saturday. Mark Ennis joining us here. Check him out on The Drive, 93.9 The Ville, from 3 to 6 o'clock. Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it.
Anytime, buddy.
MyBookie.ag promo code WARCHANT gives you an instant cash deposit bonus of up to 110%. We're about to give you folks like 110% more of the effort than we usually do on Thursdays, where we give you 2 games. We're going to do every single FBS conference championship game. Corey, Liberty giving 10.5 to New Mexico State. I'm going to take Jamie Chadwell and the Flames. Think the romance of the Aggies and Jerry Kill comes to an end. Who you got?
I don't know, man. I mean, people are talking about Alabama getting in the playoff if they beat Georgia. Well, New Mexico State beat the crap out of Auburn, and Alabama needed a miracle. So maybe New Mexico State belongs in the playoff, and they want to prove it with a big win over Liberty. I know they're getting 10.5. I think they're going to win the game outright, Aslan.
Okay.
I think they're a team of destiny. They got more confidence than they know what to do with after they saw what Auburn did to Alabama.
Oregon, Washington. We both got Oregon 9.5.
No.
Ooh.
No, I think Oregon's going to win the game, but I think it will be a game.
Okay.
So I'm gonna take Washington plus the points. So that's 2 in a row. I'm taking the points.
All right, I'm taking Oregon. How about the MAC? I think it's the MAC.
I don't know.
Miami of Ohio versus Toledo. Toledo.
I'm gonna roll with it. I'm gonna take the 7, and I'm gonna take Miami getting 7.5.
Okay. Toledo's actually been doing quite well. I'm gonna go with Toledo.
Sure.
I'm gonna fade you there. Texas giving out 15 in Jerry's world to Oklahoma State. Corey.
You know, the thing about Oklahoma State is when they lose, they lose. Like they got crushed by UCF, 45-3. They lost to Southern Alabama by a ton. In
At
Texas,
home.
At home.
Long time ago though, September.
It was, but UCF wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
And they had to come back, had a wild comeback to win against BYU. I just think Texas still think they have a shot, and they're playing for something more than just the Big 12. So I'm gonna take. I think Texas is gonna try to put it on them and hurt them. Yeah. So I'm gonna take Texas. I hate giving up 15.5 points. That's way too much in a championship game. But I'm gonna take Texas.
Well, you're lucky. You're only giving out 15. So.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, I fool me once. Shame on you. Fool me twice. I had Texas. Tech plus 15.5, and that didn't work out. So back on my boy Sark and the Horns. UNLV and Boise. Boise on an interim coach giving out 2 to UNLV, who apparently their OC is like the flavor of the month and everybody is pushing and pulling for him.
I mean, I don't know.
I'm going to take UNLV. All right,
I'll take UNLV.
All right, we're taking the Rebs. Bama, Georgia, SEC championship game, the de facto national championship game, some say. I'm just kidding. Georgia giving out 5.5. I'm going to ride with the Dogs.
Yeah, I guess. I think it's going to come. Yes, I think it'll be in the fourth quarter. I just think Georgia's better. I know Alabama's better than they played against Auburn, but I just don't think. I think over 4 quarters that the Milroe kid is going to make some mistakes, and I think you got an advantage at quarterback if you're Georgia. I think you have an advantage on defense. Brock Bowers is supposed to play. McConkey's supposed to play. So yeah, I guess I'll take Georgia minus 5.5. It's a lot of points. When's the last time Alabama was a 6-point-ish underdog? It's been a minute.
Tulane giving out 4 to SMU. I'm going to say that Tulane wins. Willie Fritz is going to do the Mike Norvell thing and know that he's on his way out, but he's going to give his school one last conference championship game as a parting gift, so I'm taking Tulane minus 4.
Okay, I'm with you. I think I agree with you on that one.
Troy Trojans, App State, Sunbelt. Troy.
We finally got to the big one.
Troy giving out 6.5 to App State. Troy's been a pleasant surprise under John Summerall the last 2 years, but I don't know. Give me App State.
Okay, I guess I'll take Troy just to be different.
All right, look at that. You might be able to catch up. No line on the A&M, Florida A&M, Prairie View A&M SWAC championship game. So we go to Iowa, Michigan, 23 points. America's team handing out to, America's children, Iowa's farmers.
23 is a ton.
The total is 35.5. So
it's yes, which I think I'd rather bet on that. But 23 is just so much. Iowa's offense is a train wreck. It's disgusting. It doesn't even count as offense. They are stealing money. Whoever's getting paid on that side of the ball. Frankly, the kids on scholarship are stealing money. They're stealing books from more deserving kids. But I still think they're going to be within 23 points. So I would say I'm going to take Iowa and the points.
All right, I'm taking my guy. Jim's back. He's angry. Coronation time.
But he doesn't have to. It's not like he has to go get style points or anything. He just has to win that. They could win that game 10-7. They're going to be at worst the 2 seed. At worst, they're playing in the Rose Bowl. Yeah. They're going to play in the Rose Bowl whether they win 10-7 or 50-0.
Well, he knows that Gene Williams said that he wants Michigan. He's not scared of those Midwestern boys. So Jim's like, all right, I'm going to show him. I'm going to show the owner of the Ultimate Seminoles Sports Source what's going on. So, and then Florida State, Louisville, we'll sit that one out. We will sit that one out. So, go to mybookie.ag. Don't sit out. Use the promo code WARCHANT. Instant cash deposit bonus. All right, Corey, much has been talked about. By the way, thanks to Mark for hopping on. Appreciate that, Mark. Thank you. Much has been talked about the conventional run game, Florida State's inability to really capture that. So let's maybe talk a little bit about that. Turbo Noel 75 says, why haven't they tried Julian Armella at tackle with all the injuries at tackle? He did redshirt last year, correct?
He did, yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I would just say they think. I mean, they are at practice every day, and they do coach that kid every day. He's there, and I would guess my answer would be, and I'm not trying to be a smart ass here, is that they don't think he's better than what they have, and they would know better than we would. You know what I mean? It's not like they're in the business of, look, this kid is clearly the better player, but we owe it to Darius Washington to let him play. They're not doing that. They're trying to win games, and they're trying to run the ball, and they just might not think he's ready. Or maybe he is ready. He's just, even if he's 5% worse than what you think you have in Darius Washington at tackle, our buyers, well, that's 5% worse. You don't play a worse player unless you have to. I'm really interested. I get that thought. I get the frustration there with the running game and the tackles in general. But I'm really interested in next year. Like, what is their plan next year? You know, I've been talking actually too much about next year. But you are going to lose some guys probably, or I would think. I don't even know. Does Byers have a year left? I think he does.
Yeah, pretty sure he does. Correct.
Man, I think the whole line does, right? Except for Roddick and Emmanuel. So you'll lose your two guards. So the tackles, all the tackles might be back. So I don't know what their plan is for next year. But I do know they like Armella and they think he's going to be a player. But I get, you would hope by this time in his redshirt freshman season, after being on campus for as long as he's been, he would be ready to contribute. And he might be, but they don't think he's better than their alternatives right now, the other alternatives right now. That doesn't mean they don't think he's going to be better by next year, but apparently, as we sit here and talk in late November of 2023, he's not their best option.
Yeah, well said. I wish I could articulate the reasons why the options ahead of him are better. I wish I could bring you all the practice and let you see. It's nothing terribly bad. It just seemingly, when they go through drills, very rarely is it one time this is what you're supposed to do, and then it kind of registers and clicks, and he does it to Alex Atkins' liking. It's usually hey, you missed this detail, you missed that detail. And it just might be one of these things where you're still kind of growing into your body, even being a redshirt freshman. I mean, because he's a large kid, he's physically probably more gifted than most of these guys ahead of him, but maybe still learning to kind of embrace or play with all that. Sorry, freaking email is still open again, Corey. One of these days, I'm going to remember to close my email. But you see maybe some of the stuff that I film in the early periods of practice, everybody, where they're going through certain drills and just for whatever reason, maybe the coaching isn't clicking in his head right now, but not to say that, 15 more bowl practices, another spring, these things cannot, change. But yeah, for right now, trust the coaches. Listen, I get it. When I was not out there, when I was in your guys' position, why are they not starting Ron Lunford? Why are they not starting Lucky Lunford? He's 355 pounds. He was a 5-star coming out of high school. This offensive line is terrible. Why not?
Yeah.
And, his footwork's bad, bad hand placement, things like that. So, coaches,
and let's go on record to say that you think Armella will end up being better than Lucky Lunford.
I don't know, man. Lucky Lunford was impactful in an ACC championship game,
yeah,
so I'm not trying to poo-poo on him.
So yeah, but the frustration is real, and I get it, and it's especially real this week, right, Aslan, and last week too, because you were getting by, not getting by, you were scoring a lot of points and winning games. Your quarterback did so much for you. Whether it's scrambling to hit a big play to a tight end on a screen or whatever it was, Jordan Travis just did all this for you. It would have been cool to have such an established running game and running attack and good offensive line that even if you do put in a backup, you can go into this game on Saturday night, or you could have gone into the swamp last Saturday and been it doesn't matter, they're still going to run for 200 yards. they're still going to run for 200 yards. They're still going to be ahead of the chains. They can dominate the game on the ground and then hit some passes here and there to keep the chains moving, maybe hit a big play and score a touchdown. But you can't do that this year. You just can't. Last year, Aslan, Florida State averaged 215 yards a game on the ground. They were 14th in the country in rushing offense. This year, they're 67th, and they're averaging 50 yards less per game on the ground. They're averaging 156 yards on the ground. Last year, they averaged 214. So 60 yards less. I get it, man. It's frustrating because if they had the same kind of rushing attack that they had last year going into this game on Saturday, you would feel much more confident about your ability to play a backup quarterback and win. But it just, I don't think they're going to lose. I'm not saying I think they're going to lose, but a lot of it's going to have to be on your quarterback. Your quarterback is going to have to play well for you to beat Louisville in the ACC championship game. If you had a running game that was as good and as strong as we thought it was going to be coming into the season, there wouldn't be so much weight on his shoulder pads. And that's what's so frustrating about it right now.
All right, let's stay with offensive line. Random_John, good morning, Azon and Corey. Ready to report on FSU's next ACC championship this Saturday? Question mark. Mm-hmm. To succeed, the offensive line needs to step up their run blocking. Yes, injuries are a thing, but hey, that's everyone's story, right? So what's the deal with ours lagging behind, especially compared to lesser teams like Miami? Is it coaching, development, strength training? This is not a new issue. It does not seem to be improving. Sure, we ran a gazillion yards last year, but everyone agrees that was mainly because of Jordan. Imagine where we would be without him. Yikes, right? If the likes of Miami can improve an offensive line to have a consistent run game, what reasons are stopping Florida State from doing the same? Come on, Atkins, let's figure this out. I guess, you already kind of talked about most of that, but if any loose ends you want to sew up there, Corey?
No, I just, it better be back to good next year. You got to 12-0 this year with a mediocre running game. At best, you'd call it mediocre, with a ton of experience on the offensive line. So whatever decisions you made personnel-wise or scheme-wise last offseason coming into this season, switch it up, man, because this isn't good enough. This running attack is not good enough to get you into the playoff consideration next year because you are not going to have Jordan Travis. You're not going to have Keon Coleman. Probably not going to have Johnny Wilson and Jaheim Bell. You've got to figure out a way to get back to running the football at a high level. That was the strength the last 2 years. And then this year it's been a weakness. And if it's a weakness next year, without Jordan Travis and those guys I just mentioned, good luck winning 8 games. You've got to be able to figure out a way to run the ball. That sets up everything with this offense. And so I don't have the answers. I'm not smart enough to give you any answers as to why they've struggled. I'm not necessarily in love with some of the personnel decisions they made necessarily, but also Robert Scott has been hurt the whole year. And that changes everything if you have your best lineman.
Well, Maurice hasn't been right probably for
correct. And also you get to develop a center, man. Because there's got to be a better option. Maurice Smith, we all love him. Great Nole. He plays through the most pain anybody on the field plays with. He is a warrior, man, and he's always out there. But it's because he has to be. Because they don't have anybody else coming up behind him except Darius. Darius can't be here for the next 10 years. So eventually you have to go develop a center. So you don't – I would rather a decent center that's close to 100% play than a good center that's at 50%. But they don't have any options right now. So next year, figure that out and just, I don't know, make some better personnel decisions. Quit pulling. So I don't know. I don't know enough. I know that a lot of their plays, though, Aslan, when they get blown up in the backfield, it's like it's off from the jump. Like you're pulling somebody that can't get – it's not like their offensive linemen are getting run over. Now, they're not running over other people either, but they're not – you don't see like Roddick and Maurice and Dimitri Emanuel getting pushed back into the backfield on these running plays for 4 yards. It's a lot of dudes just coming scot-free because you're asking somebody to pull and block a guy that they can't get to in time. So I do think a lot of it is scheme-related. So figure out your personnel in relation to your scheme and quit giving up so many tackles for loss. That would be my advice to the Florida State coaching staff going into next year.
Yeah, I don't want to encourage the queries on the kids that are not playing, but yeah, less questions about Julian Armella, more questions about Quayshawn Sapp. Like to your point about developing a center, because that kid looks absolutely physically imposing and like what you would want at the center position. And he's been on campus as long as Julian has, but he's usually in a black jersey. So maybe he's a little bit more raw because he didn't have all those stars next to his name, but he's a guy that you would surely hope that they can develop here sooner than later because, again, like Maurice is not going to be here much longer. And as Corey said, we can't keep Darius here for 10 more years.
Yeah.
So. Candy Knoll, let's go to the college football playoff portion of the program here, Corey. You missed out on the talk yesterday, so we'll let you catch up a little bit here. Candy Knoll says, out of all the potential playoff scenarios, nobody's really touched on the possibility of an FSU-Oregon rematch in the Rose Bowl. I know this would require some shenanigans, say Alabama beating Georgia, the SEC maybe getting left out, or some inexplicable reason that Michigan at number one would say, we'll just go to New Orleans instead to play Texas. As improbable as all that is, would either of you want the possibility of that rematch and the opportunity for redemption for 2014, travel considerations notwithstanding? Well done, Candy. Yeah, there you go, Corey. Put you in a corner. Don't let geography get in the way.
No, I would look, man. I think Oregon's good, very good. Now they got to win. It's not a guarantee, but they are a 10-point favorite. I think they're going to beat Washington. Not so much because Oregon's very good, though they are, but like we've talked about, Washington has looked bad for a couple of months now. Really, ever since that win versus Oregon, they've limped along and barely beaten some bad teams. So they have just not looked good. But I don't know how that would work. So just doing the math, it would take Georgia losing. But then I don't think they could play in the Rose Bowl. I think if Georgia loses, let's say Alabama wins, Michigan wins, Florida State wins, Oregon wins. I think it's Michigan 1,
Florida State 2, or you think
Florida
Oregon?
State 2. What
Bama 3, Oregon 4?
Or Oregon 3, Bama 4. But yeah, I would think Bama, if they beat Georgia, would go ahead of Oregon beating Washington. I could be wrong though. And then of course Texas is out, even though Texas beat Bama. Hey, I don't even know how it would work. But yeah, sure. It'd be cool to play Oregon again. But you know, that's a good team. I think you'd rather Washington win 28-27 and then play Washington if you're going to be in the playoff. I think Washington would be eminently the most beatable team that you could face in the first round.
Yeah, listen to Russillo pod. They think that Texas, Oregon, Alabama, Georgia, and Michigan would all be favored over Florida State in a playoff game.
Well, yeah, I think that you wouldn't stop there, honestly. I mean, look, they're only a 2.5-point favorite over Louisville. Now there is a chance if they go out and beat Louisville 31-7, well, then perception changes. But there's a small sample size with Tate Rodemaker at quarterback. You beat North Alabama, and you beat a bad Florida team 24-15. So that's what all these – but if he goes out and plays great, then all of a sudden things change, man. Now, that's a big if, but if he goes out and plays great, I think, they'd probably all still be favored against Florida State, but those numbers would shrink if Tate Rodemaker looked as good as we've seen him look at times in practice.
Also, I wonder how many of those Oregon fans you all argued with online are still around. I feel like there was a lot of like bandwagon folks hanging around, like, the Chip Kelly run and just kind of, I like Oregon. Yeah. And Oregon's been down for a while. So a lot of those people you interacted with that you want to rub it in their faces are probably not around.
Right.
But their fan base as a whole remains one of the more annoying pound for pound fan bases. So I get it.
Yes.
Like, it'd be cool to go beat them. Close.
Well, I want them to lose. I want Washington. I'll definitely be rooting for Washington on Friday night.
All right, let's keep it with the college football playoff. Journal 1518. This was something bandied about by our own Gene Williams, founder and administrator of Warchant.com, who's giving you a silly season promo, 50% off an annual membership, everybody, for first-time subscribers, or $1 for a month. So, anyway, if you want to do the $1 for a month, wet your beak, see how things go. But, again, 50% off for a whole year. Because when you do the $1 for 1 month thing, Corey, once it's over, you're paying full freight. So, risk-reward. Journal 1518 says, do you believe that if Florida State wins Saturday, the College Football Playoff Committee will do whatever mental gymnastics are necessary to have Florida State face Georgia in the Sugar Bowl so that the Pac-12 and Michigan line up and square off in the Rose Bowl in the other semifinal. While I don't think the committee would leave out an undefeated FSU, I don't trust them to seed the 4 teams with any sort of sense if it were to jeopardize what they deem as being ideal television/geographical matchups. I'm not that deep into the tank on it. I can see where you guys are coming from on it, but I really do think they will seed it 1 through 4, not with television geographical matchups.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it would be. I agree, and I don't have much history really paying a lot of attention to this, but 14 did happen, and if you think about those 4 teams, by that line of thinking, they would have had Alabama play Florida State in the Sugar Bowl. Mm-hmm. They would have come up with a way for that to happen, so Ohio State and Oregon could play in the Rose Bowl, so they could have the traditional Rose Bowl matchup. They didn't. They sent Florida State out there again 2 years in a row to Pasadena and had Alabama and Ohio State in the Sugar Bowl. So I don't think they'll do that. I think it'll be what they deem to be the fourth best of the 4 teams, or the fourth. I know they say best, the 4th best resume of the 4 teams versus the best resume. I don't think they'll do mental gymnastics to make sure that happens. I hope they do. I hope they figure out a way, if Florida State makes it, to keep them away from the left coast. But if that were to I don't think they'll do it simply because they want to, have a better TV matchup for that stupid bowl out there. I shouldn't say stupid. Yeah. The Rose Bowl kind of ruined college football for 15 years because they were so hesitant about going to an actual playoff because they didn't want to tarnish the Rose Bowl. So, but they went ahead and did it anyway.
Corey, your thoughts if Texas, Georgia, and Washington were to lose?
Oh, my gosh.
Do you see Michigan 1, Florida State 2, Alabama 3, Oregon 4, and then everybody gets their geographical wish list? You get Pac-12, Big Ten, Rose Bowl, Michigan, Oregon, and then you get ACC, SEC, in New Orleans. I mean, could you see if Texas were to lose, Georgia were to lose, and Washington were to lose, that could be a possible 4-team playoff?
Yeah, I guess, but I don't know that you would put in Oregon and Texas over Georgia.
Texas has lost.
Oh, yeah. So
Washington has lost. So Georgia has lost.
So it becomes right, but they have the same record as Oregon. Right. Yes, I guess that would be a scenario where they would. But who knows, man? Look, I do know this, folks.
Well, in that situation, maybe if Georgia also gets in over Oregon, you're still second if you're Florida State and you get number 3 Alabama. They're not going to put Georgia ahead of Alabama, so you avoid Georgia.
And what's so stupid? Again, I just want to point this out, gang.
Go!
Nobody here, I don't think, listening to this show, thinks that Florida State is better than Georgia, right? You don't think that, do you, Aslan? In the current...
We don't have to talk about it out loud. We don't want to get people angry.
No, but I mean, in the current context of the season and where you are at quarterback, the way your offense has looked for the last month, you don't think you're better than Georgia. But, I don't think the committee would... So if Georgia goes out and loses 28-24, you're telling me the committee, whose responsibility is to pick the 4 best teams...
4 most deserving.
Nope. Best. We want it to say most deserving. It does not.
Well, TCU got in ahead of, there's been
right, but I'm telling you, their edict is to pick the 4 best. Okay. It's semantics, but that's how it's written on the piece of paper. 4 best teams, which is so stupid anyway, because it's so subjective, and how would you know? But there's nobody in that committee that would actually think if Georgia loses to Alabama 30-27, that Florida State is better than that Georgia team. But Florida State, if it wins, I'm not saying they would be the 1 seed, and I'm not saying Georgia wouldn't get in, but Florida State would be ranked ahead of Georgia in the final poll. Now, explain that to me. Why? Like, you either go by what the paper says, and now it sounds like I'm making an argument for Georgia. I'm not. I'm telling you how stupid it's been all along. Oh, a 3-point loss to Alabama or a 6-point loss to Alabama, all of a sudden, and Florida State beats Louisville 24-20. All of a sudden you think Florida State is better than Louisville or better than Georgia? No. You go by the best resumes. And the best resumes has a big fat 0 in it. That's what matters most. That's what should always matter most. The one time it didn't was 2014. Since then, Do you know how many Power 5 undefeated teams have been ranked behind one-loss teams in the final poll? Zero. It happened once, 9 years ago, to this same team. But since then, in the 8 years in between, no Power 5 undefeated team has been ranked below a one-loss team except Ohio State in 2020 because they played 5 effing games. That's it. It's ridiculous they even got into the playoff because they canceled their season. And then, oh, yeah, never mind. Everybody else is playing. Let's get it back going, Big Ten. Big bad Big Ten. Let's cancel our season. Oh, wait, there's money to be made. Let's go against what we just said a month ago and let's start playing again. But anyway, so that's my point is like this whole thing is so stupid. But who it's an impossible task. It's an impossible task. I don't think Florida State will beat Georgia if they play Georgia. I'd be rooting for Florida State, but I don't think they'd beat Georgia. I don't think Florida State's better than Georgia. I don't think they're better than Georgia if they had Jordan Travis. But you know what's better than Georgia? If Georgia loses in that championship game?
An undefeated
that's zero.
Team, yeah.
That's zero, man. And that has to matter. Or we've lost our way as a sport. And I think it always has mattered, and I think it will still matter come this Sunday if and when Florida State is still undefeated. It's a matter of where you seed them. And I would not seed them behind any one-loss team because screw that. But that's just me.
I was going to save this one to Friday because we get less listens, less views, so it's part of my passive-aggressive warfare against our guy in Kentucky. But I feel like we need to go out on a high note because a lot of people are probably angry right now that we were very pro-Georgia there.
But they know where I stand. You guys know I'm not pro-Georgia, and you absolutely know I'm not pro-SEC. I'm saying it's idiotic.
Pro-logic.
Yeah, it's idiotic to say you're picking the 4 best teams because there have been – and also, wouldn't that have been great in the 90s, everyone? If there was some committee that got to just say, oh, well, I know Florida State lost by a field goal. The ball missed by 7 inches. They don't – but they're still better than all these other – I mean, you didn't get to have that logic back then. Anyway, go ahead.
How much of that affects you right now, do you think?
A lot, honestly, because it's I don't know, I sound like a 5-year-old, but it's not fair. It's not fair to grow up the way Florida State fans grew up, where one loss, whether it was in the swamp in 97 in the last 2 minutes, whether it was 2 missed field goals to really good Miami teams that literally came down to the wire both times, and then your season is over. But now, because back then losses mattered, the zeros mattered, there was nobody on my TV making the argument that, yeah, I know they lost that game, but they actually outgained Miami by 150 yards and controlled the game, and he probably shouldn't have gone for 2. If he had just kicked the extra point, no, the loss was what mattered. It's what always mattered because everything else is so subjective. It's why the NFL goes by standings and actual win-loss records. Every other sport on earth goes by win-loss records. And so that's why it gets frustrating that Florida State would have had, 4 more championships if they would have gotten the Alabama/Georgia treatment of the last 8 years. Georgia's been undefeated once since Kirby got there, going into the playoff, I mean. But if you're 1 loss in the SEC, automatic, you get to go. If you have 0 losses in the ACC, well, we'll see. We'll see how the cookie crumbles on Saturday night. Anyway, sorry, Aslan, go ahead.
159 words. I'm not going to read all of them.
Oh, wow, okay.
Bourbon is your friend, Dave from Kentucky.
By the way, real quick, Max Johnson, as we record this show, just committed to North Carolina.
Max Brown?
No, Max Johnson, Brad Johnson's son.
Oh,
yeah.
Really?
Yep.
Right. You know Florida's quarterback's already gone, right?
Yeah, the Maxes are on the move. Yeah, that he started one game. It's like, screw this. This wasn't fun at all. I'm going somewhere else.
Playoff committee is going to be deciding who gets valedictorian apparently now as well. Billy, we know you have the highest GPA, but everybody knows Johnny is smarter, so we have to give it to him.
Well
Tommy,
said.
I know we agreed $10 to rake the leaves, but that was 6 days ago, so here's $5. Right before Trey Benson's last touchdown, did you notice the sense of urgency Tate had sprinting to the huddle with his helmet on, then bullying his way next to Mike? There is a different mindset being the backup to Jordan for 4 years versus having a very confident true freshman biting at your heels to ice a game against a rival. Maybe that dynamic experience of these 2 weeks spurs a certain change within Tate. Given the common parlance of our time, would it be fair to say Jack Plummer, he's as athletic as you'd expect? That's there you go. Laugh. There you go. Encourage him. Thank you, Corey.
Well, it's funny.
Yeah, it's
yes,
not
he
that
is
fun.
about as athletic as he's not a better athlete than you think. He's the exact athlete you would think.
Yeah, Mike navigated that question kind of well after practice on Wednesday. He talked about his ability to run the ball. He's like, he can, which isn't surprising, but
that's not his thing. It's not his bag.
Yeah, so I mean, it was Tate coming out of the tent with two middle fingers raised to the air in the eye of NYC Noles' mind. Was he doing that because he's like, man, Brock's trying to Wally Pitt me, and I haven't even been out here all that long? That motivate Tate to get back out there.
I think it might have been when he heard as soon as Brock Glenn throws a pass in that situation, somebody might have ducked their head in the tent and said, "How we doing, man?"
Yeah. Do you see the five? Do you see the 5 fingers I'm holding up, Tate? How many fingers am I holding? Do you see the 5 of them I'm holding up?
Let's go, dude. Let's go. Yes, I think that was a nice spark to get him out. But also, I do think, man, it says so much when you're a quarterback. I don't think anybody questions Tate's toughness clearly, but he also hasn't gotten to prove his toughness much, has he? And so to be knocked out for the first time in his college career, I think it speaks a lot to his teammates and his coaches, the fans, obviously, that he doesn't just want to get back in the game or says, yeah, I'm good. He sprints to get on the sideline to tell his coaches he's ready to go once he gets cleared. That's a really good sign. That's what leaders do. And I don't know if he'll be the starting quarterback next year. He's the starting quarterback right now, and your starting quarterback leader. And that's good leadership, and that's toughness that his whole team wanted to see.
All right, there we go. That's a wrap. Thanks for posting your questions, everybody. We certainly appreciate it. We'll have another show for you dropping on Friday. Jeff Cameron Show. In the meantime, Warchant Report powered by Cummins over on warchant.com. I think we got the matchup analysis back, courtesy of Matt Lasser. So plenty of content over at the Ultimate Seminoles Sports Source. Don't forget that silly season promo, 50% off an annual membership for first-time subscribers or $1 for 1 month. And we will be in Charlotte Friday, Resident Culture, 6 p.m., along with the Charlotte Seminole Club. Lots to do. Come say hi. Come hang out. We'll talk to you tomorrow. He's Corey Maslow. Thanks for listening to Wake Up Warchant, presented by Corner Pocket Bar and Grill.